Welcome to the Your Family Dog podcast, where we celebrate the special bond between families and their canine companions. Our goal is to help families and dogs grow up together, one episode at a time. Welcome back, my friend, Emily Breslin. Today, we are going to talk nutrition and our canine companions. So I have zero credibility in this regard. I just have really strong opinions that I endeavor to inform constantly, but I know you have some certifications. So let's begin. You are not a veterinary nutritionist. Dr. Ryan Yamka, who we've had on the podcast previously, is. This is not that. But I do want you to talk about the certifications you have so that people aren't like, well, the way people are. Because honestly, dog food is like the third rail. It's like religion, politics, Social Security lockbox, and canine nutrition. So I'm really curious to see whether I'm going to agree with you or not. It's okay if I don't. It's all good. There's a lot of opinions. We all have one. But I absolutely want to hear what you have to say because I think it's important to gather lots of different information. And if we do agree, then I'll just think we're both brilliant. So welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm always excited to talk about nutrition.
Right? It makes such a big difference. So for me, my nutrition for dog journey started in the 70s. Yes, not the 18 or 16 or 1770s, but I just feel that way this week. But the 1970s when my parents started breeding and showing dogs, and we very quickly identified that coat texture and a dog's health was significantly impacted depending on what kind of foods we fed. Um, Even things like when they were breeding and showing dogs, how many puppies they might have, how healthy those litters of puppies might be, how quickly their teeth got plaque. It was very interesting. And then fast forward to the 90s, and I believe that's when dogfoodadvisor.com was started by boxer breeders because they too had really started financing a bunch of research because they were learning how boxers were getting sick and having all sorts of issues and were tracing that back to how they were being fed. So I grew up near Cornell. I went to a lot of conversations at Cornell University talking about nutrition and pet food. Um, and then, so I have fed grain free. I know everybody's head just exploded. I have fed grain free since the 90s and wanted to make sure that I understood what that was about, that there are a whole bunch of reasons why I don't feed grains. It'll be interesting to see what your take on it is. And when the whole, oh my gosh, you're killing your dog if you're not feeding grains thing started, I reached out to Dr. Ryan Yamka, who is one of the people who helped write the veterinary desk reference on canine nutrition, right? I wanted to go to someone, and Dr. Karen Becker. I wanted to go to a veterinary nutritionist and a veterinarian that was holistic and integrative because I do not believe that just eating anything is as good as eating actual food. So, um, Dr. Becker, and I'm gonna probably mess up the quote, but what won my heart with her and the Forever Dog was her quote of the veterinary medical complex is the only medical complex that thinks highly processed cereal is safer and healthier than actual food. And I love my vet friends. Big old hearts to y'all. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. But like the human medical complex has been kind of slow to talk to people about nutrition. For example, my medical oncologist was like, when I asked, do I need to change my diet, was like, what? And she's brilliant. Like she has a giant brain. She knows lots and lots of things. But I very quickly realized that while they while the medical complex may understand how to deal with food from like a disease process standpoint, like how it can cause trouble, what they're not good at is building health. And that my lens was a wanting to build health and longevity, and that meant I was gonna have to educate myself further. So now that I've blathered on for, I don't know, like, am I even recording? For like 10 minutes, I'm gonna shut up, I'm gonna zip it, and I'm gonna let you talk about your journey because I probably already offended you.
No, actually, we're sounds like we're probably pretty much on the same page. So, my nutrition journey started because my older dog Toby has pancreatitis, and he would have a flare up once a week for
Which is
like the
awful.
last.
Like,
Yeah, it's awful.
pancreatitis is
Vomiting,
awful.
yeah, vomiting, diarrhea, bloating, constant pain,
Oh,
like, it's the and he's a little, like, 10-pound Chihuahua mix, so, like, it's even
of
more
course.
awful, I think, for the little dogs because they just I don't know, they look so pathetic when they're in pain, and and so I started learning about nutrition because I wanted to help him, I didn't want this to keep happening to him, and they wanted to put him on a prescription diet, and they wanted to do this, and we did all of the things, and we tried this, and we tried that, and we went back and forth. And finally, because of my podcast, I made some friends with this one of this co-founders of Pet Matrix pet supplements, and I learned all about bioavailability, and I learned all about like what's actually in supplements and how many of them are actually just junk and all of this stuff. And I started putting Toby on their stomach product. It's called Protect, and within a few weeks he started getting better and started getting better and started getting better. And then after, he's been on it for about 2.5 years now, and he has only had one flare up in the last 2.5 years. And that was because they ran out of product because it became so popular. They ran out of product and we were out of it for like 2 months. And so he had a flare up. But in addition to that, Tanisha is also a veterinary or she's also a certified canine nutritionist like I am. And she started teaching me all kinds of things. And so I started learning from her. And then I met some Nellie from uh oh gosh, why can't I remember off the top of my head what her I can't remember, but she works for Feed Real on top of it. And that's where I got my certification through. It's a CPCN, Certified Professional Canine Nutritionist. And she started teaching me stuff too. And then we co-wrote a book on how to dehydrate your own dog treats. And then she said, Emily, and then Tanisha said, Emily. And so I went ahead and I got the certification. It was last January that I got the certification.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a year, which is crazy. And it was because I broke my foot and I was down for the count. So I said, what can I do to, change my situation here? So I decided to certify.
So so I've had strep all week and a fever since today's Friday. I think my fever started Sunday morning. I went to the doctor, I'm on antibiotics, blah, blah, blah. Every time I'm sick, I think to myself, I could take this course now. Like this would be because I'm grounded. I can't go anywhere. Like I should be able to get a bunch done. And then and then I have fever brain.
Yeah, that's
And I
different
will
than broken foot brain.
And I will retain nothing. Yes, right. Like a broken bone, I would like to think that I would not be nuttier than a fruitcake. So, talk to me. Here, just dump out all the things you learned.
Okay,
No, I'm
so
kidding. So there is, isn't there wasn't there a documentary made about the pet food industry? I wanna say there was.
there was. I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head,
I'd
but
have
it
to
it
look it up. Maybe
it
I'll
was
watch
out
that.
there.
I heard it is equal parts enlightening and awful.
Yeah, I have seen parts of it and it's pretty disgusting. And honestly, like going through the program with Feed Real, I completely switched my dogs over to raw feeding. Certified I know what I'm doing. I have a calculator that I use. I figure everything out by their weights. Each dog gets their own portion. They get their own amounts. And we meal prep for 28 days at a time. I call the butcher. I get what I need. He divvies it up for me, and then I make it even smaller from that. But I decided to go that route because when I learned about what bioavailability is, which is the amount that your body can absorb what it's eating. So if you give your dog raw food, that is 100% bioavailable. It goes directly into their bodies. They can use up all the nutrients and then, the little pieces of waste and stuff, because obviously everybody processes and waste comes out. It comes out. But if you compare a bowel movement of a dog eating kibble to a dog eating raw, it's going to be much smaller. It's going to be much firmer. It's going to be less wet, and it is going to smell less.
And it breaks down when it rains. It
Yes, it
doesn't melt.
does.
It doesn't melt. It just biodegrades.
Like
So
actual compost.
so I will tell you, so Dr. Yamka taught me this. Um, One of the things that I find infuriating in the pet feed, because it's not pet food, it's pet feed industry, is that many of the manufacturers won't share with you digestibility numbers. This is infuriating to me.
Mhm.
They claim like, oh, that's proprietary information, which frankly, it is not. Okay. And let me explain why. So, this is not information that if they shared with us, you, me, any consumer, what percentage of the food actually feeds the dog and stays in the dog and what part ends up in the waste, that's not proprietary information. And the reason why it's not proprietary information is you, me, Joe Q Public can take a dog, they can measure what nutrition is through a laboratory, $7,000 a dog and a bag of food, you can measure what nutrition is in that food and then collect excrement from that animal and measure what nutrition, what values are in that feces. And the difference is digestibility.
Uh-huh.
So when we look at the AFCO standard, and I'm going to be hyperbolic because I'm sick and this is something that makes me like infuriated. But the AFCO standard is basically you can feed it to your dog for 6 weeks and they don't die. Like they don't lose so much body weight in that 6 weeks that they're dying, right? Personally, I am not willing to accept that standard of care. I
Did you
think
know
we
that
should
AFCO
raise the bar. And they
did you know
have
that
in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, they have. Europe has done such a really good job. New Zealand, specifically, has done a really, really good job. But did you know that AFCO is not a governing body?
No, it's made by it's basically the big 3 giving themselves a pat on the back and finding everyone else sucky.
Yeah.
I
Now they're
really
gonna be
view it as a
changing.
marketing gimmick.
Yeah, oh, yeah. They're gonna be changing. In the next 6 years, AFCO passed a law, and in the next 6 years, they are going to change the food labels on dog food. So they're going to have what's called a pet nutrition facts box, and it is going to look very much like what it looks like on the back of your soda can, on the back of your chip bag, on your frozen dinners, or anything like that. It's going to look very similar. And I think when people start realizing and understanding how much junk is actually in their dog foods, how much not real meat and byproducts are in their dog food,
Right.
it's gonna upset some people.
And to be clear, I'm not throwing kibble under the bus. We feed we feed in our household a very high quality kibble, and we augment that because frankly, I can't financially afford to do what you're doing.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't have the knowledge to do what you're doing. What I do though want is an educated consumer. And so if you're already spacing out listening to this podcast, but there's a little bit of fire in your veins about it, Whole Dog Journal does a fantastic job of curating a list of all different types of pet food that are available on the market and informing you on what's in it, what's not in it, and they have a minimum standard.
So, um, I want you to think about back when, way before kibble and everything
Right.
which was in
Up until the 40s and 50s.
1953 is when they first started mass producing kibble. What do you think that people fed dogs before there was kibble?
Well, they fed dogs what we ate, right?
That's right,
The
they
dog
did.
got leftovers and we ate better. Our food
Mhm,
was more local. You went to the local butcher. You were maybe even growing in a garden, right? Like th- th- we ate better. We did not eat highly processed foods constantly. I want to say cornflakes was the first highly processed human food that was
mhm,
created. And they and so our dogs ate better because we ate better. I do
correct.
love that at least here in the United States, and when I talk to my Canadian customers, they are absolutely understanding that what we put in our bodies matters, right?
Yes,
I don't wanna put a bunch of junk in my body, and the convenience of a lot of junk is there's a lot of junk, right?
yes.
I stopped feeding grains because I was tired of my dogs getting cancers.
Mhm, and that's I mean, that's
I
the
didn't want all the
grains and
inflammation.
sugars. Grains
Well,
and sugars
and
feed cancer.
carbohydrates,
Mhm,
grains, become
yes,
sugars, which feed disease and illness and inflammation. Many
yes,
times I'm working with animals that are emotionally inflamed. The body has to handle all of that. So that what I have observed in my personal individual study of one research is when the dog is eating better, they behave better because they feel
yes.
better.
There is a definite connection between the gut and the brain and behavior. It's 100%, like, scientifically proven. There's all kinds of research on it. But let me go back to the point about what dogs were eating before kibble, right?
Right.
And their closest living relative, because they're not directly descended from wolves, there's a whole bunch
No.
of science studies on that too, but their closest living relative is the gray wolf. What does a gray wolf eat? It doesn't eat carbohydrates,
Carrion.
doesn't eat processed food. Yes,
Well, I mean,
exactly.
they're gonna eat grasses because they want the digestive enzymes,
Yep.
right? They're gonna eat berries when they find them. They're gonna eat fruit when they find it. But basically, these are opportunistic predators who mostly survive on carrion. They're
Yes.
scavengers.
So in the wild, let's say the grass and the berries and all that stuff equals about 10% of what their actual diet is. That other 90% is going to be muscle meat, it's going to be bone, it's going to be organs, and it's going to be all that fat and gristle and all that stuff that they're picking off of the
And
carcass,
hair,
right? Yeah,
and
hair,
hair,
fur and
beaks,
fiber, that's a
feathers,
big thing.
feet.
Yeah, all the stuff, right? They think all of that is delicious. So, if you think about that and you think about how healthy dogs were back in those days prior to kibble being on the shelves, a golden retriever's lifespan was 17 to 22 years. Since we have started feeding our dogs processed kibble, their lifespan now for a golden retriever is 12 to 14 years. That
And
is a massive difference.
I am seeing golden retrievers who have serious cancers at 2.
Yeah,
Now
which
there
is
are a bunch of other
terrifying.
changes too, and I'm not
It's
gonna
not just
swallow.
the kibble.
No, I mean,
It's not just the
it's
kibble.
a lot of things. It's toxins in the environment, it's our water,
Unchecked breeding.
spay neuter,
Yep.
right? Breeding animals that aren't health clear, which thank
Mhm.
goodness now we can do DNA testing and see whether or not a dog is carrying a genetic marker for some disease or syndrome
Hip
or other.
dysplasia, things like that.
Well, even there's marker genes for DCM.
Yeah, there is.
But I have Doberman Pinschers, like, that's
Mhm.
one of the breeds we have. This is a breed very prone to DCM. I haven't fed grains to a Doberman Pinscher in decades.
Yeah.
My dogs are not dying of heart disease.
No.
Now that could be a fluke, but I don't think so. Right, and I'm not faulting vets,
Oh,
right? The AVMA, the Journal of Veterinary Medical Association, it's my understanding the only editorial they have ever published was on DCM and grain-free,
mhm.
right? So every single vet who read those articles was like, "Well, no, this is a peer-reviewed study," and it wasn't. Now, I will tell you what my suspicion is,
Okay.
kinda inside baseball. There was a move from one of the they that shall not be named to purchase a very high quality pet food company based in Canada, and that Canadian company, I am privy to information that they told one of those really big companies that they would burn it down before they would sell it to them,
Wow.
right? That they did not actually want to be a part of that mess.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that's one of the companies named as murdering, killing, terrifying the consumer about, "Oh my goodness, if you feed these foods, you're gonna kill your dog."
Yeah, it's pretty
And
extreme.
now a candy bar company, after completely weakening that thriving, amazing dog food company that was amazing, I fed it for decades, has purchased that pet food company and turned it into feed, and now I don't recommend it and will not use it. So I switched
Yeah.
to a different Canadian company that is very high quality and has a veterinary nutritionist on staff and still not feeding grains and feeding a very high quality kibble because
Yeah.
I can't afford to make my own dog food for 4 dogs.
Well, something that I'll tell you, I live in Iowa, right? We're a farm state. So meat is a little bit differently priced here than it is in other parts of the
Oh,
United
yeah.
States. So I am very fortunate in that aspect. And, there are brands of kibble out there that are good brands of kibble, but you have to know what you're doing because even
Oh,
the whole follow the, organ meat, first 3 ingredients should be bone, organ meat, and muscle meat, right? You should see those 3 things at the top of the ingredient list. Well, guess what? Those big brands of kibble have found out that that is what is true and that is what people are looking for. So they start pushing those ingredients to the top and then they start doing what's called ingredient splitting. And that's when you start seeing things like chicken meal and then chicken thigh and chicken liver because they're taking all of the parts of the chicken that might have been used and bulking up so that you think there's more in there than there actually is. When, in fact, a dog should have 60% meat, okay, in their diet, 60% minimum. But most kibble brands max out at 22%. That's the marketing for you right there.
yes, and I finally remembered what I was gonna talk about with the big 3. So Whole Dog Journal has standards for what they'll review and rate, and the big ones, the yucky ones that I would not ever recommend, wouldn't feed for free, those don't pass muster. But that's the average vet coming out of vet school. I love them. They're smart and pretty. They're gonna recommend those all day long, and they're getting
Well,
taken, and it breaks my heart.
there's a reason for that, right? So, veterinarians go to vet school and they are required to take 1 to 3 hours max on
That's
veterinary nutrition.
often freshman year. How much
Yeah,
do you
and
remember from a 3-hour course you took freshman year?
exactly.
And what year was
And
that? What year
yeah,
what
exactly. What year?
like,
What year?
I was in school in the late '80s.
I mean, that's a
I
long
mean,
time.
shiz has changed since then. Like, we've
Oh,
learned
yeah.
a lot since then.
Yeah.
And our
Things have
poor
changed
vets
a lot
can't
in the
know
last.
everything.
Yeah, no, they can't. And that's why having a specialist or a canine nutritionist, veterinary specialist, veterinary nutritionist, having those things is really important because like if you broke your
But
leg,
it depends which school they're living in.
yes, because there are a
'Cause a
ton of
bunch of them are
veterinary
still
medicine.
gonna be like, "Oh, these are amazing, and everything else is awful."
Well, that's what there's a certain number of veterinary nutritionists that are like I can't even remember. I think there's like around 100 of them, right? And I think it's 85 of them work for big brands of kibble.
Yes. That's who they get their funding from.
Mhm. Yeah, so
So
they're gonna
so
side
this
with
was
them.
so, Emily, this was amazing to me. So, there was a time that my practice included the Asheville, North Carolina area.
Mhm.
And as I was out taking business cards and introducing myself and finding out, like, what the specialties of all those vets were and all those things, the one thing that struck me to my core every single time I walked in an office is there wasn't a stack of those foods anywhere. And so I started just asking, like, "Hey, I noticed that the brands that I normally see in a veterinary office kind of stacked up and available for customers, you don't have any of those." And over and over and over and over again, I got the feedback, "No, we just give them a recipe so that the person can control the quality of the food that the dog is getting." I cannot even imagine that happening in the community I'm in now. I get it. I'm not mad at the vets. I'm just saying this is a big difference. This is a big, big difference. I don't need to be a veterinary nutritionist to know if I put Animal Digest in my left hand and I put cellulose in my right hand, so a chemically melted animal that we don't know what species it is, shoveled off the slaughterhouse floor and wood pulp and put those together, that is a ideal food source for dogs. You're gonna have
Pretty
a really
wild.
hard time convincing me of that.
It's pretty wild. And the things that are in dog food that people just don't realize that are so
Crazy
terrible,
making.
like Tyler tire sealer is one of the things that's been found to be in there. Um
Euthanasia
Euthanasia.
drugs have
Yep.
recently made it into some of those foods, and they had to
Yep.
recall them, and then they lied that they recalled them because they didn't really recall them, and then they got called on the carpet again and again and again and again because
Yep.
it keeps showing up. How we all get hoodwinked by all of this, like, is infuriating to me.
It's infuriating to me too, which is why I educate so heavily on it. And, I have programs where for people like you who don't know what to do and maybe they want to feed a little bit more raw or maybe they just want to switch over to raw or maybe they want to feed half and half. I do custom plans. You can do 1 month, you can do 3 months, you can do 6 months, you can do a year, and I will give you custom recipes that change every month because your dog should rotate proteins every 28 days because that helps them keep the vitamins and the nutrients balanced. And it also is more about feeding intentionally, not perfectly, right? So you want to give them the variety so that, this one has higher vitamins in this and this one has higher vitamins in that, and you're rotating through. Another thing, too, that people get lost on, and I think this is really important, is that your dog's diet should only be certain percentages. Okay. So 5% liver. That's all it should be. You can give your dog vitamin A toxicity if you give your dog too much liver. Okay. You're talking like major issues, and people will just hand those bags of freeze dried liver to their dogs. You're potentially running into a problem here if you're doing
Well,
stuff
and the
like
same
that.
thing happens, well, a different but similar thing happens with banana, right? Too
Hmm.
much potassium, and you're not gonna
Hmm.
see there's a problem until you run blood work and your dog's potassium's through the roof and you're doing heart damage.
Yep.
I recently did research for a client and found out that dogs who have seizure activity should never eat chicken
Yep.
because it contributes to seizure activity. We have a dog in our household that if he gets a hold, he can do duck, he can do quail, he can do turkey, but if I give him chicken, it's a mess. It does not agree with him. It's not okay, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't work for him.
No.
So I do think while, and I will also say percentages of protein and the digestibility matters, right? So I read research recently, probably in the last 5 years, that um, freeze dried raw chicken more highly digestible than even raw chicken because the act of freeze drying breaks down the cell walls and makes it more available. And
So
that
we actually
I'll have to look that up where I found it. We'll see. It'll be fascinating to see if I can find it. However, that came to me from a veterinary nutritionist who knows what he's talking about.
so with the program that I got certified through, we actually don't recommend freeze-dried. We
Oh,
recommend
I
dehydrated
recommend
or
freeze-dried.
fresh.
I recommend freeze-dried is dehydrated. And I recommend cold pasteurized freeze-dried raw because I don't want kids sticking their hands in
That's
stuff.
totally different. Yeah, if you're
Do you know
worried
what I
about, like,
mean? And then
cleanliness
also
in children,
seniors. There
yeah.
how many people scoop up their dog's dog food and handle the bowl and don't wash their hands after? Heck,
Or the bowl.
right? I watch people go out of public restrooms without washing their hands every time. I am not a germaphobe, but like
Yeah,
every time I touch a surface in public, I'm like, oh, hand sanitizer, which I know also is not a great answer. I just wash my hands a lot.
yeah.
But there are considerations for families with kids. If you have a little that's crawling around on the floor, I'm going to tell you the safest way to do it. That's my goal. So, may not be ideal, but I'm going to tell you the safest way to do it so that we're not worried about the baby crawling, in the area where the dog ate 20 minutes ago and we've cleaned it up and picked up the bowl and thrown that in the dishwasher and all the things.
Well, and that's my biggest philosophy is feed the dog in front of you, right?
Right.
I While Feed Real
And with
might
your
not
budget.
say Yeah, exactly. Feed Real might say, "Don't necessarily recommend this," but if that is what works for the family and that is our option, then that's what we're gonna do,
And I
right?
want and I want I mean, I love Balance IT. When I get somebody who asks like, "Hey, I'm thinking about feeding raw." Dr. Karen Becker has now 2 books out with fantastic recipes for at home, and then balanceit.com is a fantastic resource for making sure that the recipe that you have for feeding is a nutritionally balanced one. Um, there's lots of ways to go about this. I really like freeze-dried raw. I think that for most families is kind of that fulcrum of cost, safety, and quality.
Mhm.
Again, I don't eat perfectly. I can't afford to,
Nobody does.
right? But someone can easily grab a freeze-dried raw product, look at the ingredients and go, "Does it have the things that I don't want my dog eating?" If it doesn't, yay. Does this fit my budget, and can I use it to augment what we're already feeding so that we feed our dog better?
Well, and there's things that you could do. Let's say you can't afford anything but the kibble that you have. You can't afford to spend any money on organ meat or muscle meat and you don't want to do that. So I can give you let me give you a few things that you could add to your dog's bowl that would be super beneficial, okay? And they're cheap.
Blueberries.
Yeah, blueberries is one of them.
Break
Goat
them
milk
because
yogurt.
lots of dogs think blueberries are tiny little bombs, and why are you feeding me rocks? But when you break them, they're like, "Oh, it's not a rock."
Yeah, it's not a rock. And that's fine. You know, you can also like cook the blueberry and
A little
help it,
bit.
like,
Well,
expand a little bit, and that
it's
generally helps
amazing
as
to
well.
me it was amazing me to learn that when we do vegetables specifically for our dogs, that they should be blanched to break down that outer
Yes,
wall
I was gonna
because
say that.
it just goes right, like corn, it goes right through if that outer cell wall isn't broken down.
Yeah,
So
no nutritional benefit.
what are some easy things that people can, like, pick up at the grocery store? It's not gonna break the bank, but it allows us to do it a little bit better.
Okay, goat milk yogurt or
Nice.
kefir. Depending on the size of the dog, you're gonna have you wanna, like, be careful how much you give because it's a probiotic. It can cause some intestinal ick if you just, like,
Digestive
spoon.
unrest.
Yeah, if you if you spoon that whole thing out, that your dog might not feel too well. So, definitely learn about how to properly give that based on your dog's weight. Cooked vegetables, okay? Carrots, um, broccoli, any kind
So
of.
so one of my dog's carrots will absolutely cooked, not cooked, doesn't matter, loose stool. Doesn't
It's okay.
tolerate it
Some
well.
dogs don't tolerate it well. And
Right,
also, if you give too much of something, too much beta carotene, too much vitamin A, too much whatever, you're having an
right.
issue again. So everything in
We weren't
moderation.
we weren't overdoing it.
Okay. Another thing that you can do is small oily fish, anchovies, sardines, green lipped mussels, anything like that. You can go to Trader Joe's and get a little 3-pack of sardines. Again, you have to learn how to give it by your dog's weight. It's a percentage of what their meal should be. So you need help figuring that kind of stuff out
And if
again.
you're feeding a fish-based kibble, stay away from this because 'cause you'll overdo vitamin K.
Well, it depends because there's a thing about processed vitamins and fish oils. And this is a really controversial topic, but oils, dogs' bodies cannot process oils at all. None. They get zero benefit from oils. And it's really hard on their livers and really hard on their kidneys. So, by pumping that oil onto your dog's food, salmon oil, cod oil, whatever it is that you're doing, you are causing their body to have to work harder. And you're actually literally shaving years off of your dog's life by doing that. But on top of that, as soon as oxygen gets into those containers, the likelihood of those oils going rancid is so freaking high. Now, not only are you inflaming your dog when you're trying to reduce inflammation, but you're potentially giving them like active poisoning. So, the oils are really bad. Stay away from them. If you want to talk more about this, I'm happy to talk more about this, but it's one of those things that is, again, a marketing ploy in the feeding world where they're just like, here, put this on your dog's food and it'll be so much better. If you want to reduce inflammation and get better vitamins into your dog, do not give them oils. And processed fish probably isn't real fish if it's in your kibble. So be mindful. It's definitely something that I would be happy to go over with somebody, but the real benefits from real whole foods matter. Now, you mentioned about eggs earlier. That is something that I also recommend. If you have a small dog, they can have 1 egg a week. If you have a medium dog, they can have 2 eggs a week. If you have a medium-ish large dog, think 50 to 75 pounds, somewhere at 60 to 75 pounds. They can have 3 a week. And if you have a large dog, they can have an egg a day. You can give it to them raw. You can boil it. You can scramble it. You can do whatever.
But if it's store-bought eggs, you have to take the shell off. If they're
Yes.
farm fresh eggs that you got from your neighbor who has, girls out in the yard who cluck around and tell you all the things when they lay an egg, those eggs, you can just wash I usually hard boil and just chop it and throw it in because, again, my dogs are skeptical
Mhm.
that is a
Some dogs
weird
are.
raw.
Also, eggshells, really good for your dog's teeth. But as you said,
Only if they're
farm
not
fresh eggs.
treated. Yeah.
Farm fresh eggs, not treated. No chemical, no bleaching, none of that stuff. So there are definitely considerations to take in there. And
So do
then
we
let's
know if
see.
anything, um, leaks, for lack of a better word, um, from the treatment on our kind of commercially produced eggs. Does any of that leach into the egg, or does the membrane protect it?
I would think that the membrane would protect it. Don't quote me on that, but that my science brain is saying that's what happens. But you never know. What if it cracks? Then yeah, for sure, it probably gets in there. A little bit of crack, and now it's in there.
Well, I
So
mean,
I,
we
I
say no to crack on this.
always know to crack. But I just think that it. I don't know. I don't ever. I do organic or farm fresh all
Right.
the time for eggs
Yeah.
anyway. And
But
another like,
lots of us are facing different pricing than you are.
oh yeah. Well,
I'll give
again,
you a
farm
trick I
state.
learned. I put out, I put out to my hunter friends, "Hey, do you have freezer burned venison in your freezer that you're never gonna eat? My dogs will joyfully I grind it up, I put it in the Instapot, so I'm compressing as much of that nutrition as I can, but I'm cooking it really well so that I'm not worried about pathogens, and then I freeze that and bust it out for the dogs and add it to their food to increase meat intake."
Yeah, and it's a great one, venison, and it's the best thing about venison is it's lean, right? It's not fatty. So again, like a dog that has pancreatitis, like Toby, you want to go for those leaner meats. So turkey and venison. We did some elk recently. That was
Oh, I
really
wish I
good.
could
He
get
really
that.
liked that. We
I don't
just
think
really
I
try
can
to
get
stay
elk.
away from pork, duck, things like that are really fatty, unless my butcher says, "Oh, I've got a really lean cut on that, and we can get you something that's not so fatty," then we'll try it. And I mean, so far we've been really successful in everything, but it's a major concern, right? It's like things that you have to watch out for.
Thank you for joining us today when we had part one of our nutrition discussion with Emily. I hope you'll join us next week for part two.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your precious day with us. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, rate, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media or email us at yourfamilydogpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you soon.